Okay, everyone, so you are on your second essay assignment. And essentially, you guys have read a lot of different authors in this unit. Primarily, you've read a lot of poetry, but we've read a few other things mixed in as well. So I didn't limit this to just poetry because I want you guys to be able to talk about what you want to talk about. So essentially what we were talking about here is that we have a lot of different authors who are connected by similar experiences, but also very different experiences as well. So their identities as writers in this unit, in this section, 1914 to 1945, can be broken up into a lot of different sort of collective groupings. So there are authors who wrote about life during the war, both wars, or after the wars. We have modernist writers, we have early feminist writers, we have Harlem Renaissance writers, and a lot of them crisscross as well. So you have Harlem Renaissance writers who are modernists, who lived during the war. So we have a lot of ways that we can pair these texts. And what you're going to be doing essentially is showing that you are able to connect these texts across sort of different groupings. So you're going to choose two authors from this unit that you read, and you're going to compare and contrast their works in terms of the literary analysis. So if you choose an author who probably is a poet that had multiple poems, so we read a lot of authors who had multiple poems like Frost and Langston Hughes. If this is who you choose, you can decide exactly how you want to analyze their poetry. You may choose one poem from each author. You could choose multiple poems from each author. You could choose two poems from one author and one poem from another. It's entirely up to you how you want to put it together. But the important thing is that you must analyze two different authors no matter how many works you choose from each. Now, when you choose these authors, you can choose ones who kind of seem to naturally fit together. So say you wanted to do Claude McKay's Africa with County Cullen's Heritage. That would make a lot of sense. You could definitely put those two together very easily. Say you wanted to do a female author. So you wanted to do Gertrude Stein with Zora Neale Hurston. You could do that. It makes a lot of sense to put certain authors together. You could also choose to put two authors together who don't necessarily seem to go together at first. Something interesting could be somebody like Ezra Pound with, let's say, the the sort of more militant call to action poetry of someone like Claude McKay. So you could put interesting authors together who don't, like I said, don't necessarily seem to go together, and it would still work really well. I think you could get very creative in that. It could be really interesting. You could do someone like Zora Neale Hurston with Fitzgerald. Sort of the tones of the works could work really interestingly together. Either way, you will have to use two scholarly sources at least from the TCC Library database to support your analysis. So your sources in this one, you can use outside sources beyond this. You definitely can use, biography.com or Encyclopedia Britannica or whatever you want to use. That's fine, but you absolutely have to use two scholarly sources as well. And you have to, of course, cite them in text, and you have to cite them in the bibliography as well. So on your bibliography, I should have at least 4 entries, 2 for the scholarly sources and 2 for the different authors and works that you're maybe writing about. Your essay is going to be due on Sunday, November 6th at midnight, as always, no exceptions. Your essay is the usual 3 to 4 pages in length. Remember that this is a minimum page requirement, so you are more than welcome to write more than that if you like. But you have to write at least 3 pages in full, meaning you start at the top and go all the way to the bottom of the page to count as a full page. And use proper citations, of course. Everything's going to be checked through SafeAssign as always. MLA standard formatting required. And here is the list of authors that we have read in this unit. So you could choose from any of those and any of the works that you've read from them in this unit. And importantly, the choice of topic and the literary work, of course, is yours, so please choose carefully. You are going to be looking at the works, but you're also going to be looking at how the literary style fits together or doesn't fit together, the historical context, and the biographical context. So you're doing something very similar to your first essay, but you're doing it with two authors here. So the primary focus should be on the work itself. So you're really comparing the literary elements, the style, the tone, the structure, all these different things. But you're also going to bring in, because you kind of have to in this case with these different texts tied to the war and the post-war and modernism and the Harlem Renaissance, and we have ideas of, gendered violence, and we have racial tensions, and we have all kinds of things that kind of connect. So you need to bring in the historical context as well and the biographical context. But this should be secondary, historical and biographical. The primary focus should be the literary elements and the focus on the text. You should use the graphic organizer that you have created to help you organize your thoughts. That's why I had you do it, because there's a lot of information and a lot of different parts kind of in this unit. So really use that to help you streamline your thought process. I've given you some general questions, ideas you might think about as you go into this. You're creating an argument, remember, so your argument should really should be about how these two works connect, meaning where they're the same and where they're different. So that should be your main thesis, your main argument, and from there you build your main ideas around that. So you can think about things like how the works connect in terms of major themes or other literary elements. How are the structures of them similar and different? So if you choose two poems, how are the poems similar and different? Are they both sonnets? Do they have strict rhyme schemes? Do they have end rhymes? Do they have enjambment? If they're not both poems, or if they're poems of two different styles, why does that matter? So if you compared someone like Countee Cullen, who sticks with very strict classical forms of poetry, to someone like Langston Hughes, who plays with form, who plays with free verse, and who mirrors, blues rhythms and jazz rhythms, that's a really significant thing. So how do the structures similar and different, and how does that impact the meaning itself? And then what historical and biographical elements can you use to contextualize both these works? So how do the differences between the authors and the historical situation impact larger meaning, social, political, economic meaning around the work? So Langston Hughes was hugely influential. Someone like Gertrude Stein was hugely influential in her circle. How might those two connect in a post-World War I time frame? But we have two different areas of the world that we're talking about. So how might those two connect? I'm not quite sure at this point, but you could do something very creative where you connect the two of them. So you're going to be looking at the following as your criteria. Make sure that you have a fully developed argumentative thesis statement which introduces the works and why they're similar and different and why that matters. Careful, close analysis of the works and its major concepts. Lots of good evidence, both from the texts themselves and from the scholarly sources that you are including. All the basic requirements: proper page length, MLA, the correct number of sources and the correct type of sources, and of course, as always, citations and a bibliography. A fully developed essay structure, meaning you give me a solid intro with your thesis, clear main ideas with lots of good evidence and analysis, and a solid conclusion. And then careful, clear organization of all your ideas across thematic concepts. So really it's important when you do a comparison contrast, a lot of people will do one paragraph for one author, one paragraph for another author, and then that's all they do. You don't want to do this. You don't want to have your authors separated out. You want to connect the authors in each paragraph across a thematic idea. So for example, you could do something like, if you say you did, let's just go with McKay and Langston Hughes. If you did the idea of, I don't know, social activism, you'd want to bring in quotes from McKay and analysis about McKay and compare that directly to analysis about Langston Hughes in the same paragraph. And then you would go on to a second paragraph, and you would have that paragraph be about something like sort of the influence in the Harlem Renaissance, and you would have pieces from McKay and pieces from Hughes, and you put them together in that paragraph. So you really would connect your authors thematically in each paragraph, and make sure you don't separate them out. That's just a higher form of analysis and something that is much more used in the scholarly world. Okay, that was a lot of information. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Hopefully it's pretty clear by this point. And hopefully you use this time to get creative and kind of enjoy writing about something unique and different.